Well, welcome, Miss LadyVee the poet. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Just got off from work, so anytime you get off from work is always good.
Okay. I just want to first ask you, or thank you for participating in this experiment. I'm just kidding. I'm kind of doing an expose, I guess, about poets in Atlanta and the whole scene in Atlanta. But first, I want to ask, who is LadyVee the poet?
That's a very interesting question. LadyVee has evolved from being a very shy, I can't say this type of person into I'm ready to come out of my box type of person. LadyVee the poet is a woman that speaks her mind and helps other people to speak their mind as well through poetry workshops and through open mics and things like that. I really believe in quality creative expression. That's like my three favorite words. And so I believe in having your emotions being shown truthfully and not being ashamed about what you feel in your emotions. So that's definitely who LadyVee is.
Where did you get the name from?
Well, when I started performing poetry, it was back in, I guess, middle school. We had like a poetry group that went into the library, we did shows, and people knew me then, but then I went to college, and when I started signing up for open mics, Deveata, nobody could say it. They're like, Deveata, Deveata. I'm like, no. So they would just really mess up my real name. So I'm like, LadyVee, I like that. And so I said LadyVee the poet because I'm a poet, and it was just so much easier for the people to call me up on stage and say LadyVee to know they're just stumbling over my real name. So I definitely like the swagger and the kind of sophistication of LadyVee the poet. It's got kind of like a mystery to it.
Yeah, that's true too. So how long have you been doing it?
I've been writing poetry since middle school and performing it since like middle school and high school, and then I'm really getting into the performing part of it. I didn't realize how drama and theatrical goes into it. A lot of people, they just stand there and recite the poem and sit down. But I've been taking like acting classes and drama classes and stuff and really getting into like the performance of it all. So I've just, for my graduation of college in 2004, I've just gotten into like the dramatic part of it and the theatrical part of it, including like music and props and things like that. So I'm really excited about this new phase that I'm going into.
So would you consider yourself to be slam poetry? And if it's not slam poetry, what's the difference?
Definitely not slam, because slam poetry is more competition. You're getting grades, you're getting up there and you're going up against other poets saying that, you know, this poet gets a 10 and this one gets a 9 and an 8 and stuff like that. I used to do slam back in Augusta, that's my hometown, Augusta, Georgia. And, you know, I never won. Maybe that's got a, you know, bad memory on my part, but it's kind of like, I don't believe poetry has to be competed. It's like poetry is what it is and you appreciate it, but I don't want to put it up against some other poet saying, oh, he's better than him and she's better than her. I really don't like competing my poetry, so it's definitely not slam. It's just more the appreciation of the art itself.
Now, is Def Jam considered slam poetry? From an artistic standpoint, not so much the competitive part?
If you're talking about Def Poets Jam,
Def Poets Jam, I'm sorry.
I don't believe so, because I mean they have screenings and auditions. Of course they have judges to say, well, you know, I want him on the show, I want her on the show, but they don't win prizes and stuff like that. It's like slam poetry here in Atlanta, you win like $100 prize if you win the whole competition and stuff. But when you watch it on like HBO and things like that, it's kind of just like a show. They have judges and they like pick who they want to be on the show, but there's no prizes involved, so it can't really be considered slam. So
slam is more like a term as opposed to an actual meaning. I guess what I mean is, like, I know I've seen poets that were more rhythmic,
right,
as opposed to straight lace poetry, and I'm saying that's not what slam is. It's just,
slam isn't really a technique. It's more like the performance of it all. It's kind of like what it is. And slam poetry is competition poetry.
Okay.
And so it's not, but people get up there, I've noticed that slam poets, a lot of them sound a lot alike.
Right, exactly.
It's more kind of like a lecture than a poem sometimes.
Right.
But you can get up there with, you know, a limerick or like any type of poem could be a slam poem. It's just that if you're competing it, it's called slam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about your books. I know that you have two.
Oh,
and I actually have one, Imagination Overload. Looking forward to reading Clenched Teeth Smiling.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Tell me about each book and what the difference is between each book.
Okay. this is Imagination Overload. This is my first book. It was published in April of 2007. And this book is more like me writing for my audience. It's broken down into 50 poems, 5 chapters: life, love, heartache, art, and observations and reflections. And this is a very, very organized piece of work because this is my very first, this is my baby. And so, Imagination Overload to me, it goes through everyone's emotions. It's like every human being goes through life, love, heartache, art, and then at the end, they take all those emotions and put it towards their daily lives. So if you're a person, you definitely have these emotions that are in this book. Clenched Smiling, on the other hand, this one was published last year, like the end of last year, 2008. And this is a collaboration project between me, Lady Vee the Poet, and Adonis Ignis Fascist. He's a poet and novelist that I think still resides in Decatur, Georgia. But this is a collaboration project, and it's with the comparison. I wrote this for my poetry audience, and I wrote this pretty much for myself. This is a healing book for me because 2008, as we all know, is a very tumultuous year for a lot of people. And a lot of these poems are a lot more edgier. A lot of these poems are a lot more, there's a little bit more dark poetry in this one. And also it includes artwork from a lot of, from me and from Adonis, some of the crazier ones, I don't know. And he kind of, it goes off the box there. But I mean, this book to me is kind of a very therapeutic type of thing. If you went through a hard 2008, like a lot of us did, then definitely you'll appreciate the poems in this book. We have war and family relations and love and heartache. So this is a graduation from this book into kind of like, this is me behind closed doors. So definitely, if you want to find out the mystery of Lady Vee behind closed doors, then this will be the Clenched Smiling is what you want to have on your bookshelf. And also this one, because this is all the emotions that you'll ever face in your life: life, heartache, art, and love, and observations and reflections. So that's me in a nutshell right there.
Well, let me ask you, before I finish phase 1 of this interview, where did you get the titles from?
The title Imagination Overload came to me because I had, just because of the process of putting the whole book together, I had poems written on the back of napkins, on the back of insurance bills, just everywhere, and it just seemed very overwhelming to me. So I'm like, my imagination is overloading all over my apartment. So definitely that's where this came from, just the whole process of putting together my first poetry book. And it was just kind of like an explosion of thought all over the place, and I finally got it together. So I'm like, oh yeah, you know, and finally in one book. And Clenched Smiling is kind of, through a relationship, you're smiling because you want to keep the person happy, but then again, like, there's sometimes things come up and you're like, oh, I really wish I, you know, so you have this clenched teeth smiling because you're like, you really want to be happy about it. You're happy that you're in a relationship, but trying to change somebody else, trying to be somebody else for somebody else, it's like clenched teeth smiling. And the stuff that I went through in 2008, it was kind of like, you know, I'm smiling, but I really, really don't want to be, but you're still smiling, so it's clenched teeth smiling. So that's where the titles came from.
Okay, what do you love about poetry?
I love that there's no rules in poetry. I'm trying to get into writing fiction and other types of literature, but I just come back to poetry all the time because it's just no rules. It's like you can rhyme, you can not rhyme, you can make up your own words, and it's just poetry. But I like that about it, and I also like the fact that it's, like I said before, it's therapeutic and it's healing to me. It's like a lot of times you just can't write a letter, or you can't write just anything. It has to be in vivid, creative language to get it off your chest sometimes. I think when you get up and perform poetry and you can just touch one person in the audience, that's the real goal there with poetry. And with the stuff that I've written, if I see somebody's face light up or they come to me afterwards and say, you know, I went through that same thing, thank you for saying that, it's like, man, you know, poetry has a way to really touch people, and I like that about it.
So has your writing, obviously you're older now, but has it changed from the time you were, or did you always write the same way?
A lot of my poetry in the beginning was about the people that I dealt with. It's like that's really all I knew in middle school and high school, like, oh, my boyfriend and my best friend and things like that. But now I see that